Welcome to Uninterrupted. This podcast was merely curated with one goal: to build a community, a familiar thread to connect with like-minded individuals. A community where one can find purpose, one that serves you that feeling of warmth, one where you feel you belong. Our episodes feature unfiltered, free-flowing, and candid conversations with women from different walks of life who've created an impact in their own fields. So gear up to be inspired. I'm your host Samriddhi Taneja, and this podcast has been presented by mirrAR by Style.me. It is the world's first ever augmented reality technology platform that enables virtual try-ons in real time for brands in the retail industry. Today, I have a very special guest on air with me. She started out at 23 with a dream to bring her happy place, Paris, to Mumbai. Today, she runs one of India's most sought-after bakeries, Le 15 Patisserie, with multiple stores, a flagship cafe, a studio workshop, a line of best-selling cookbooks, and a team of over 100 people. If you're remotely in the know-how of macarons, you already love her. It is my pleasure to have on air Pooja Dhingra, one of India's most prominent entrepreneurs. Pooja, thank you so much for choosing to be on Uninterrupted and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, was it like your love for food as well that kind of inspired you to study pastry arts?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with dessert. I've loved chocolate my whole life. I think it's my first love. I just, reached a stage, when you are young and you're about 16, 17 and you're confused about your career. And also back then, being in food or being a chef wasn't something that was so mainstream as it is today. So for me, deciding to, switch, I, went to law school for 10 days. I can't even take credit for it. And decided that I didn't want to do it. And then the dream was to start a cafe because, yes, I do love food. I come from a family that's obsessed with food. And that took me to Paris.
Right. Okay. But tell me more about when you were actually studying pastry arts. Tell me a little bit about that.
So honestly, it was such an eye-opening experience because I was 21 when I moved to Paris. So I'd lived in Switzerland before, and I moved to Paris with one of my best friends who also went to school with me. We just had the best time because it was like, when you're 21 and you don't have any, okay, at that point you think you have all the problems in the world, but you really have no problems
Yeah.
at all. And you're living in one of the best cities in the world, and you're so immersed in food that I think for me that was very exciting. It was also very different because French pastry is so different than anything that I'd known before, right? I grew up in Mumbai. I grew up eating like donuts and cheesecake and brownies, but for the first time, this was more like, oh, a patisserie is like you're walking into a gallery and it's like, almost like a chef is treated like an artist. And I tried my first macaron. And even in class, like when we would, do lessons and the chef would be like, today we are making Madeleine or today we are making something. I didn't know what that was. I'd never had any of it before. So being in school was a great experience because it was like, learning something completely new every single day.
So tell me, how did it feel to open up your first like Love 15 store? Like when you actually saw it come to life?
So in school, I used to daydream a little bit and I used to draw out what I'd want my store to look like. So I always had like a vision of what I wanted it to be like. And then when I finally, came back and I started Love 15, I think the first proper store was our Bandra shop about 8, 10 years ago. And that one was, it took me a long time to find the space. And literally the day I signed it, I went there with my friend Pratish, who's a graphic designer. And we walked in and we saw the place and, we went for lunch to Suzette after. And Suzette has like these table mats, which we turned it upside down. And he's like, close your eyes and describe the store to me. And I just kind of, I closed my eyes and I walked him through the store of how I wanted it to look like. I wanted this white picket fence. And while I was talking, he was taking notes and he was drawing it. And we literally went to a friend whose dad is an architect. And I was like, Uncle, this is my store. Can you make this for me? I have this thing of thoughts becoming things. This was literally like seeing a vision that was in my head and then walking right into the store store. I think it's a feeling that I can't really explain. It was a lot of like hard work. In retrospect, I can now look at it and say that this was it was very dreamy and it sounds really like almost script-like. It was, but it was also a lot of struggle that went in each stage to make that happen. So finding the right space, putting together the money to do up the store, getting all the legal work, behind getting it
Yeah.
up and running, finding the team, training it. So I think that it's actually seeing your dream come to life kind of gives you that sort of push to deal with all the other like problems that kind of spring up when you're making it happen. So yeah, short answer is it was a great feeling. That was a very long answer.
No, that's a great answer. It's almost been a decade. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Running a kitchen or like running your own cafe, ensuring that consistency in food is not always easy. So tell me, what challenges did you face early on, and what was it that kind of drove you to keep building this brand?
That's a very, great point that you bring up, that it's consistency. And I think that one point that a lot of people that start their own businesses should be aware of, because making one cake at home once is easy, and that, everyone should be able to do that. But doing that every single day, day after day, and then doing it at scale is the real challenge, right? There were a lot of challenges, and pastry was very different in the country. You didn't have,
Yeah.
to find the right ingredients. Today, you can get everything, right? You get the right butter, you get the
Hmm.
right chocolate. Back then, even like sourcing the right ingredients was tough. Everyone was using premixes, so kind of being really strict about making things from scratch. And like this kitchen philosophy to kind of, as a young girl, find the right team to train them, to know to how to set up an organization. I've made so many mistakes, like there's
Right.
as any entrepreneur when you start off, and I was doing this alone, so I did what I could to the best of my abilities. But the one thing that I think that has always helped is always need to keep learning and getting better every day. So no matter what challenges kept coming, and they still do 10
Hmm.
years later, they're just much bigger right now. It's about like trying to figure out how do you solve the problem and put a process to it, so that then it's just you're solving it at the root rather than just a quick fix. And I think that only comes with experience. So I think, yeah, I've been through my share of challenges from day one till today.
Were there any stereotypes that you faced, and do you still like face them?
I mean, that is, I think it goes without saying that any woman trying to do anything will face, will be at the receiving end. I think I was just so young and so passionate and so naive that I never really let it
Hmm.
bother me, or I didn't really, because at home, we were treated with so much equality that the fact that I was a girl, it didn't even cross my
Yeah.
mind that it would be an issue. It was only when, it was very apparent when people would always want to speak to my dad, or like try to find out where the husband was. I also feel that I had to face that because I was a young girl doing something so unique at the time. There were a lot of positives as well, right? So there was a lot of media attention, there was a lot of attention, there was a lot of people encouraging a young girl doing
Hmm.
this as well. So I think I chose to just focus on that instead of dwelling on, trying to break any stereotypes. I was just like, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to try and do a good job every day. And hopefully that should speak for itself.
Okay. I have a question which is, I don't know how we will kind of take this forward, but tell me, how did you initially explain what a macaroon means to someone here?
So basically, I didn't even know what a macaroon was till I moved to France, right?
Yeah.
And I remember eating my first one, and when I looked at one, I was like, "Oh, this looks like a mini burger. This is really cute. Like it's this
Yeah.
colorful mini burger." And then it's only when like I knew that my dad tasted it and my mom tasted it when they visited me in Paris, and they loved it. I was like, "Okay, this has the potential to be really big in India because I've never seen one." And when I started, I did like these tastings, a lot of like free tastings I would set up in malls, give people samples to try. A lot of people who traveled knew what a macaroon was already. And for
Yeah.
people who didn't know, it was just a lot about educating that, okay, this is a French style cookie. Why is this different from a cream biscuit? Why is this so expensive? So it did take a lot of time kind of educating people, telling them what's different about it, and just getting as many people to try it. And I think that the minute people tasted it, it just changed everything.
So when you're making like a new addition to say your menu, or you're innovating on your current offerings, what does that creative process look like for you?
It has evolved a lot since I started. I think when I started off, I there was the constant need to do something new because that's just the kind of person I am. And I think for a while there, I was doing something new almost every like 2 months, 3 months. Till it reached a stage where I was like, calm down. You don't need to do so much new stuff every time. For me now, it's innovation and, creating new things is how do you get better than you were yesterday? So if we are making the same macaron, how is that better today? How is this, are we getting better in just the basics? So a lot of time is spent on looking at that. And then now it's a calendar that's rolled out, and I know in a year I need to do a Christmas collection, a Valentine's Day collection, the mangoes will come in. So it's pretty much it's pretty set
Yeah.
in its ways. But then I'll do new things like we just launched our packaged
Yeah.
goods. So experimenting with new flavors, testing new cookie recipes, many failed batches of hot chocolate later. We have something. And now while the base is set, it's fun because now we're doing something new for Christmas and we have something new planned for Valentine's Day and we just build on that.
Right, right. I know that the cafe and like the menu is, of course, hugely inspired by, your experiences in Paris, etc. Did you ever consider experimenting with, say, like the Indian flavor profiles?
Yeah, a lot. Actually, a big part of what I wanted to do when I moved back from France was, and this is, a part of our initial website and communication as well, was always sort of to look at French technique meeting Indian flavors. It was actually inspired by a lot of the Japanese chefs that I knew and worked with in Paris because, you saw the Japanese quite proud of their culture, heritage, and kind of adapting French pastry to their flavor profile. And I always thought that why don't we do this with the Indian flavors? And the first few years I did a lot. We had a made in India collection, which we had like a chai macaroon,
Yeah.
we had a green chili macaroon, we had a pan macaroon, and that remains constant. So every year we do something that is take on something. So for Diwali we do a kaju katli macaroon, and it's fun. So it's a lot of like seeing things that you see on a daily basis but don't expect to find it in a Western dessert.
Yeah.
But then it's also just like, oh, like saffron in this will make the flavor pop. So yeah, it's a lot of fun like trying those different things as well.
Right. Okay. So on one hand, you're constantly experimenting with these ingredients and new flavors, and especially because it's so complex. And on the other hand, you have actually experimented with words, and then they came together. Correct me if I'm wrong. Today, you're like 4 books strong, right?
5.
5. Okay. So tell me more about your journey as an author. How did it start?
So I mean, I love writing. Writing has been a big passion. Storytelling for me, I think, is one of my strengths. Growing up as a kid that loved baking in India, I realized that there were a lot of things that were not so easily available.
Hmm.
Obviously, we didn't have the internet as it is today, but just finding the right recipe books, finding the right recipes that told you what to do for the Indian kitchen was very tough. And it was always a dream. Like I love cookbooks. I collected them. I read them as,
Hmm.
bedtime stories. And I just have the most massive collection, cookbook collection. And it was always a dream that I wanted to write my own book and I wanted to write a baking Bible of sorts
Yeah.
for the Indian home kitchen. And that's, where the first book came about. And each of them have been about like following my own personal journeys. So the big book of treats
Hmm.
was that it was that that Bible for home cooks because I sort of didn't have it. It's a book that I would have liked growing up.
Right.
Then the wholesome kitchen came about, which is the second
Yeah.
book, which I wrote when I was training for the half
Hmm.
marathon and I was off sugar. And I was like, I was dying because I'm a pastry chef that loves sugar.
Yeah.
And for 6 months, I didn't get to eat any. And then I was like, okay, these are the desserts I made for myself without butter, sugar, flour, eggs. I think there's a book in there. And then the wholesome kitchen was written for that. And then Can't Believe It's Eggless, which has been our most successful
Hmm.
book, was just understanding the Indian market and seeing what people really wanted. And ever since I moved back from France, the first thing everyone would ask me is like, oh, can we learn what you learned? But we don't need eggs. And I took it up as a challenge and said, okay, let me figure this one out. All the books have been part of the journey, and I've just started working on the sixth one now. I'm extremely excited about it.
Wow, that's really exciting. Good luck with your book.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've spoken about, you donning the chef hat, you donning the author hat, but you're also one of the most successful and celebrated women entrepreneurs in the country. So I'm going to talk to you about the business side of things. So tell me, what is your vision for Love 15 as a brand? What does it stand for?
I've had a lot of time to think about all of this
Yeah.
in the last 8 months. For me, Love 15 has always been about taking taking you to a better place, like bringing you moments of joy. And I think that as a brand, that's what we do, right? Like we are part of your happiest moments, we're part of your celebrations. And I'd love for us to be part of, the small joys of every day. So could be when you are having your afternoon chai with a low 15 cookie, could be when you're making hot chocolate at night, just, comforting yourself. So for me, it is about like, how do we get to every household and become parts of those small joys of every day?
Perfect. So, tell me, when you're hiring for Love 15 as a brand, what is it that is a complete like hard no? And then what is it that instantly makes you say, yes, this is the person, I want them to be part of my team?
To be honest with you, hiring is definitely a place where I personally feel like I needed a lot of work and help. And that's, something that I have been working on over the last couple of months. I do think that when you're starting out as an entrepreneur and you have a vision for a company and, culture is so important, I think it's just very important to have really defined roles and basic sort of structure of what you're looking for in a person. So while a lot of it, like 80% of it is instinctive and it'll depend upon meeting the person, a lot of the fixed stuff needs to be checked off first. Like, the basic criteria to hire, whether it's the skill set or experience in the same position, stuff like that. And then after that, it's just a matter of me meeting the person and being like, okay, I think this person would be a good fit for this role.
Right. Okay. So other than that, like if you could probably, share like a pill of advice, actually like a macaroon of advice to anyone who's looking to start like a patisserie, what would it be?
To someone who's starting a patisserie, I would say that really know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Make sure you carve a niche for yourself. You figure out what your specialty is or what you're really good at and just play on your strengths. I feel like it's quite a crowded marketplace now. A lot of people doing a lot of things, but there's enough room for everyone because just look at our population and look at how much we celebrate. So there's enough for everyone, but just identify why you're doing it because things will get difficult and it is a tough job. So when you hit those really tough moments, you should know why you're doing it. That would be my advice to anyone starting anything, actually.
The year hasn't been easy at all for anyone, especially in the hospitality industry. So what is your biggest learning been in the last 8 months?
So my biggest learning, there have been quite a few, but my biggest learning in the last 8 months was that you really have no control over any plan. I think just taking one day at a time. You hear a lot about living in the now and living in the present. I think this is the first year that I've put that to practice.
Right. Okay, perfect. And is there one thing that you're really grateful for?
Oh, I'm grateful for so many things. So many things. I think I'm grateful for my family every single day. I'm grateful for our health and safety. I'm grateful that we have food on the table. I'm just grateful every day.
Right. I'm grateful that you guys started deliveries across the country.
I'm glad that you've been ordering from us.
Perfect. Pooja, this was such a phenomenal chat. But before I let you go, I have one last section for you.
Yes.
So it's called High Five, and it's basically our rapid fire round. So I'm just going to quickly ask you 5 questions and just...
Should I be scared?
No, I feel like I've been really easy on you.
Okay.
What are the 3 things that you think anyone entering the Love 15 patisserie shouldn't leave without trying?
You have to try our macaroons because that's what we're known for. I would highly recommend getting the hot chocolate. And oh my God, what else? The tart of my dreams, the monster macaroon, the Nutella cheesecake. Sorry, everything. You have to try it.
Okay, perfect. Advice to everyone, try everything. Okay. 2 things that the world does not know about you.
Oh, that one that I'm a trained Reebok instructor. That was my one thing that no one knows about me. And then second is that I feel like I have a real good knack with understanding languages.
Perfect. Okay, what is your favorite ingredient to experiment with?
Chocolate, always.
Okay, one thing that is a strict no-no in your kitchen.
Disrespect.
Right. Okay. What is the best thing about running your own patisserie and being the macaroon queen of India?
You can eat all the chocolate you want.
This is perfect. Pooja, thank you so much for being here today. And I can't wait for a Love 15 store in every city in India, especially in Delhi.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if we're going to open a Love 15 store in every city, but our website delivers everywhere. So don't forget to order.
Perfect. I'm going to order humongous amounts of your hot chocolate mix, I promise.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day. For everyone who tuned in today, thank you so much for taking the time out and listening to our conversation. If this conversation struck a chord with you, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and share this with your friends and family. If you have a take on the topic we discussed, or if you'd like to share some feedback, please feel free to write to me. I'm going to catch you next week with yet another uninterrupted conversation. Have a great evening ahead.